We are more than meeting bookers. We are more than opportunity setters.
They might not actually get celebrated the same as AEs in the organization.
And I want to position this team as salespeople. All I want my teams to achieve is this question, which is, how did you do that? Ultimately, will drive someone to say, sure, I'll talk to you for 15 minutes.
How do you tie the ROI of a continuous learning program?
I think where we could fall down at Everboarding is going,
Hello. This is Michael Ocean, founder and CEO at SellMeThisPen AI. Today, we're going to cover Everboarding topic with my great friend, Jake Hollis. I'm super excited about, this one because Jake has been in the trenches, crushing quotas, starting as an individual contributor and then leading SDR teams to massive success for over a decade. He's currently a senior account development manager at OpenText, and recently he received the title of most impactful leader in the organization. So Jake, why don't you tell a little bit about yourself and let us know how you got into sales?
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Thank you. So how did I get into sales? I feel like this question has been asked to a million people with kind of similar answers every time. I kind of got into sales because I needed a job. Is the short answer. I was in my late teens, early 20s, and didn't really know what I wanted to do. Like a lot of people, kind of worked a few jobs here and there. And honestly, I heard about a friend's sister of mine was working in sales at the time, and I heard at the time what felt like a huge amount of money, that she was achieving, and kind of asked a few questions around, hey, what is it that they do? How do they make this money? So on and so forth. And naively, with that naivety that comes with youth and perhaps over exuberance, I just thought, I can do that. How hard can that be? So I started out in kind of those classic boiler room situations. $150 a day, cold calling off a script. Great to get the foundations in. And then I started to slowly move my way into tech. Within that, did everything from headhunting, where I was, cold calling VPs again at 21, 22 years old, cold calling VPs and CEOs, across Europe and in the US, just blind audacity, to be honest with you, just blind audacity, which, trying to convince them to change job with no other reason other than a 22-year-old thinks it's a good idea. And from there, kind of found my way into actual tech sales, made a few contacts, learned quite a lot through that job. So I make jokes about it, but, learned a lot, and that kind of positioned me well to actually moving into real tech sales, where, like you say, I was an individual contributor for a number of years. And that was something I loved. Progressively worked my way into management. Again, I don't want to repeat myself, but again, kind of by accident. And it started out as, I don't mind doing a favor for the CEO. Like, I'll help. I can be a team leader, manager, whatever you want to call it. And that's progressively turned into the last kind of 5 or so years of my life. And through doing that, ultimately, learned a lot, mostly just the fact that I actually really enjoy helping other people make money as well as myself. So like I say, it's probably not too dissimilar to a lot of salespeople and their careers, but it seems like a system of me being in the right place at the right time, mixed with a bit of hard work and just blind audacity.
I love it. So it seems like a natural progression for you. Like, you started as an SDR. You most probably had a shot at being an AE and go in that direction of being, more senior, selling enterprise. But because of the need of your organization at that time, you got into leadership and you kind of like jumped right in. Yeah, you had to learn about it. You got better at it. And because the focus of today's conversation is around everboarding, I wanted to jump right in and ask you this question. Like, what the hell is everboarding? Like, how do you compare it with onboarding?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think there's lots of different ways to look at this, and I think everboarding and onboarding are one of the same, but I think it's everboarding is about setting up for long-term success, not just from an individual perspective, but also from a business perspective. And I've been guilty of this, and I've known many leaders who've been guilty of this. Of we train people, we onboard them, and then we go, hey, where's it fallen down? And I know, at least from personal experience, that sometimes it's my fault. And sometimes we struggle, and individuals struggle because it's my fault. So I kind of break it down into 5, 6 areas when I think about everboarding. The first one, and ultimately all everboarding is continuous learning, right? It's lifelong learning within a business that you're in, within an organization. It's about learning new skills, broadening knowledge, and really growing with the business needs. You touched on it myself. My career grew because of the business needs, and took that route. But continuous learning is everything, right? Everything from official training, workshops, certifications, all the way through to mentors. Mentors don't have to be leadership. They don't have to be senior people in the business. It can be a peer. It can be someone in another team. It can be someone who is it just in the organization who you aspire to be or work with. And that starts out with the continuous learning piece. And again, most businesses are dynamic, right? And most businesses do not look for people to fail. In my role, we constantly invest in tools. We're updating policies, and we want to be a dynamic work environment. But the issue with that, and again, I've been guilty of this, is we bring in policies, we bring in tools, we bring in things with a view to helping people. And it's very easy then for people to forget about some of the other tools we have, or other policies that are in place. And some of those can be as positive as, hey, we will invest in your learning if you want to take on a course. But if we don't remind people that, hey, we will put money towards your studies, or we will help you with this course. So it's about continuously and updating on those policies and tools, right? Because again, in dynamic work environments, we're evolving, we are constantly evolving, and we want to ensure that everyone stays up to date with those changes. Other sides of these things, and I think again, everyone talks about this, but cultural immersion, everboarding, it's about going beyond technical skills as well. What are the company values? I mean, again, I'll use myself as an example here. I was over in Canada, as you know, not that long ago, and I was asked, "Hey, what are the company values?" I could remember 3 out of 5, right? And that's not because the business doesn't make me aware of them. That's not because they're not there. But hey, I'm not hearing about them every day, right? And I'm probably been guilty of that of every business I've ever worked at. If someone said to me, "What are the company values?" I could probably name 70% of them. And then team building exercises, initiatives, and making sure that we keep employees and colleagues aligned to really try and foster a deeper connection, and a sense of belonging with the company. Because I think if you get that, you get more investment, you're going to see teams succeed. And then other areas, and again, like I said, we could talk about this all day, but performance development. This is linked with growth. This is about providing personalized learning paths for individuals. We spoke about my role. The usual role is you go SDR, you go AE, and wherever you want to go from there. But hey, what does the individual want to do? Right? Some SDRs, if we just look at my role, right? Some SDRs want to be CSM, some want to be leadership, some want to be sales, some want to be marketing. You can say that for in tech across the breadth of businesses and roles, right? There'll be people in marketing who perhaps harbor goals and ambitions to move to a slightly different area. But I think we're sometimes fall into the bracket of going, this is the role, this is the growth of this role, rather than this is the growth of this individual. So we have to make sure that those performance development plans are really aligned with career goals and the individuals themselves. This is probably more of a business one, not just the individual, but it's about adapting to change, right? There's constantly new trends, there's new technologies, we've got to help employees stay ahead of the curve. We've got to encourage them to evolve. We've got to encourage them to try new ideas. We have to create an environment where, the status quo isn't the only thing that we can do. I think the status quo is the quickest way to team down foreman, right? And within that, I'll steal actually a sentence from a colleague of mine. There can be no monopoly on good ideas. Everyone has to be able to adapt. Everyone has to be able to change, myself included. And we have to make sure that any new practices or any new changes we bring in are implemented, are bought in, and we don't grow stagnant. And then finally, I think the 6th point, which I personally would look at everboarding, is engagement and retention. Very similar to what I mentioned earlier, but employees who feel engaged and as though they're growing with the company and feel as though they're a part of the mission, the goals, the growth, the trajectory, usually stay longer. They contribute more meaningfully. There's nothing that kills potential success of a team or an organization quicker than turnover, right?
Yeah.
No organization, no team wants to sit there and consistently bring people on and consistently onboard them, right? Let's bring this to a close, right? We don't want to consistently onboard. We want to everboard them, right? We want to consistently make them feel a part of the business so that they contribute and grow meaningfully. So that's my idea of everboarding. I'm sure there are some people who would have slightly different views, which are also probably brilliant, pretty better than mine. But that's how I view it. That's kind of how I break down everboarding.
I love it. Like there's so many topics that we can move towards that you just broke it down perfectly right now. I did my job as a, good seller, hopefully, wrote all the notes. And I want to actually, just go through this and just open up a few of these notes because I think it's
Yeah.
important for people to understand like more than theory, more than ideology, how to really actually go about implementing some of these things to help our organization as a whole to succeed through these
Yeah.
everboarding programs. So continuous learning to me, it's very clear. It seems like self-explanatory, right? But when it
Mhm.
comes to execution, when you get busy, especially if the team is growing, especially if the market is a competitive market,
Mhm.
how do you
Yeah.
tie the ROI of a continuous learning program? It could be through training, through continuous coaching. It could be
Yeah.
so many different elements that you put in place to make sure that reps continuously get this learning that they need. But how do you ensure the efficacy of these practices so they're not just a time consuming learning process? They can actually
Yeah.
apply it in real life.
Yeah. Okay. So good question. So there's a few ways in which this can be done, and again, I'm going to repeat a sentence I said a moment ago. I think part of it is not having a monopoly on good ideas. One voice becomes stale. It does, right? I can I can think I know everything in the world, but if I'm the only one consistently trying to help my team, for example, a voice gets stale, right? Sometimes we need to mix it up. So some of continuous learning is about empowering those around you, right? I have a team of fantastic individuals. We do. I'm very blessed to work with each of them. But sometimes it's about going, hey, X person has had a fantastic idea, they've tried something new, and it's brought about new results. And we've got two options here, right? They tell me how to do it, and then I teach the team, or I empower that individual to go, hey, I would love for you to walk through what you've done, what you've changed, how you've got there, the results you've seen, and share the pitfalls as well, right? What
Hmm.
worked in it, what didn't work in it, how did you get it to a point where it did work? And I think by doing that, it does two things, right? It keeps people engaged. It shows an environment as well to the whole team that, hey, trying things is okay, right? Continuing to evolve your skills and learn things and put them in practice is okay. But also, you may see your colleague, your friend, your peer progressively get better and better and better results. So, by that peer then teaching and by that peer then sharing ideas, the proof is in the pudding. They can look at their peer, their friend, their colleague and go, well, yeah, you have had a growth trajectory. Your results have improved week on week, quarter on quarter, month on month. So then they bring a level of validity to what they're saying, right? People
Hmm.
listen, people want to take on board these environments because they can prove it. They can see it's been done. Because again, I can teach all of the theory in the world, right? I can have past experiences, but my team haven't seen me do this at a previous company, right? I can tell them with every ounce of confidence that I am right and this works, but they've never seen me do it. So
Hmm.
by elevating others to share and to grow, I think really helps with that continuous learning piece. Yeah, that's a personal favorite way of mine to do it.
I love it. I love it. And it makes a lot of sense because by partnering, with your current team, you kind of like kill two birds with one stone. First and foremost, you show people how it's done in real life and back it up with real result. Like he's in your team. He's already, been doing this for a while, and this is the result. So you can accept this easier rather than just, a leader comes and says, I've done it before. This is the way it's gonna work. So give it
Yeah,
a shot. Okay, but you maybe did it differently somewhere else. But this is an actual, result that you can share with your team from their colleague. And also you empower that individual to try to help others. And that's, I think, one of the most important part of building the skill sets to be a leader, whether you decide to go for a leadership position in the future or not. So I think you still kind of like help yourself and your company when it comes to this everboarding program, not to partner up with someone to help, your current team. You help them with, maybe just exploring some of these career path opportunities. You talk about performance development, how to help them actually navigate different possible position in the organization when they want to grow. So I think that's a really smart way of doing this. Now, I have another question about the company values. You mentioned it's really important to build that culture so people feel that they belong to the company. But based on my experience, sometimes like really pushing for these values or team activities can feel fluffy. If you know what I mean. It's just like, hey, we have all these, great values, but how do we make sure that we really follow what we preach? If these, values are there, are they just there to sound great? How can we just really stick to them and as leaders show people that we really respect this, cultural values of the company?
Yeah, yeah, and I appreciate the question. It's a good question. It's actually kept me accountable to realize that I could have given a different answer there. So, so thank you for that. So, I mean, there's a few ways we can look at that, right? Like you say, how do you get a team to care about business values, right? I don't necessarily think it's about the team caring about them. It's about understanding, how does the business view itself in the market, right? Are we representing that well? Do we believe that what we're doing aligns with that, right? It's not necessarily about saying, hey, every single one of you has to shoot for the stars. I will say that's not my business's value, but you know what I mean.
I get what you said.
So we can evolve this, right? And one of the things that we do at the moment is we have the company values, right? We're taught them, we know them. Then we have, I suppose, what I call team visions. So we have my vision, which is, why I believe we exist, what impact I believe we can drive, and what we're looking to achieve. But then I also want to take it out and give it to my team and say, why do you think we exist? What do you think our vision is? And then it's about taking the three of those and where do they align? Where does my vision align with the team's vision? How much crossover is there? How much difference is there? And then how much of that also aligns to the company values? And then there is a level of ownership within that, right? It's not just about saying, here's 5 things on a presentation with colorful dots that we all believe. It's about saying, this is the way the business presents itself to the world, and this is how we present ourselves to the company. And how do we align with them? And how does what we do align with how the business wants to position itself? So it's not about taking them and saying, yes, we're all excited about these values. It's just about understanding why they exist, why we exist, and then what impact that has both on us individually and as a team.
Make absolute sense. So to me, what I'm hearing is this is just not a fluffy text to say we care about this, this, and that. That can actually help our reps when they
Yeah.
interact with their clients. It could be through a post on LinkedIn, it could be through one-on-one conversations like this during a discovery call, to actually keep those values in back of their head, and by reminding it and be relevant to the clients about the things that we do differently compared to other people as part of our value, it helps them basically grow their pipeline or advance the sales or have better relationship with their clients. Did I get it correctly?
Yeah, exactly that, right? Exactly that. It's very important to keep them in mind because we ultimately are. I mean, if you look at my business units and my organization, we're often the first people a client or potential client will ever speak with. So we have to make sure that if nothing else, we represent the company the way the company wants to be represented. So from that perspective, it's just about understanding them and understanding why they're important. It's we don't have to live and die by them as individuals, but like I say, it's important to make sure that how we present ourselves and how we present our role is one that raises the opinion of the individual and the business to potential prospects, potential clients, as well as internal stakeholders.
I have another quick question based on what you just shared. I would say like part of or even one of the most important elements of everboarding is having a personalized enablement plan for each individual.
Yeah.
So as a rep, you need to practice. You need to get constant coaching to get better and better. But one thing that make things a little bit complicated, to your point, like we already have some tools, we already have some processes in place that we completely forget. We put them aside, and then because we want to be adaptive to change and new trends in tech, we tend to, especially in tech, buy a lot of new tools, bring a lot of new processes. And based on my experience, that really distract reps from doing their work because they have to adapt to this new processes and technology, although necessary. But how do we build a nice balance between being adaptable to change and knowing the new tech and even implementing all this new technology to help our sellers do their job better, while making sure that we use what we already invested on, and also we don't want to burn our reps going through learning about new tools or processes? How do you do that?
Yeah, so there's a few ways to do it. I think firstly is really understanding and defining the why. So whether it be a new process or a new technology or a new framework, why are we actually doing this? Are we being reactive and are we looking at the market and going, oh, our competitors have shifted to X or are doing Y? We need to do that. Well, that yeah. So are we being knee jerk and reactive, or are we understanding? Is the data behind this decision? Is there a why behind it? What's brought us here? And I think if we can understand the why, it becomes a lot easier to communicate that, to a team. If we go, if I take my team for example, if I go to my team with a new process or new framework change, I'll make sure there's always a why behind it because, as you rightly say, we can bring in new stuff and say, hey, this is what we want to do now, and maybe people adopt it, maybe people don't, and equally, maybe people forget about what we used to do, or they move away from it completely or stay the old way. And it's a frustration everyone has always felt, right? And I don't always get this right, but defining that why is really important because if you can express the why a change is happening and the thought behind it, and wherever possible, because it's how I like to do things personally, the data behind it, what suggests this is the right decision to make. And then I always like to frame things as, hey, we'll test it, right? If we're going to make a policy change or a framework change, process change, let's test it. We don't have to abandon the old. Let's run both side by side. Because again, it's about bringing people on board. It's about making them feel a part of decisions. It's about making them feel about part of the company growth, as I mentioned previously. So, if we can explain the why and then demonstrate the real world, the buy-in is so much bigger, right? There's so much bigger, and more importantly, people feel a part of that decision. Now, whether that I might get in trouble for this, but whether that decision making process is fabricated, just to make
Yep.
people feel important, or whether they're actually a part of it, are two different questions. But I think where we could fall down at everboarding is going, this is what we're going to do now because I said so. Right? It's
Hmm.
we have to remember we're dealing with adults, right? These aren't 5-year-olds who have to wear a coat, right? These are adults who are here to pay bills, to feed their family, to grow their careers. I just think it's very important to make them feel a part of it and understand the thinking.
Makes sense. So, the last point about what you just said was keep the team engaged to have better retention.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're gonna deal with talent churn, and it's real. Like it's happening. Like if you look at the stats, like sales is one of those roles that got the biggest turnover. To your point, so making decision about a new process, a new tool, sometimes from leadership perspective, because you have the experience right now, you're looking at the business as a whole rather than just,
Mhm.
for example, an SDR, trying to book the meetings while getting better and, maybe aiming for an A position or self leadership position. So they're in their world, you're looking at helping them as individuals and also serving the company as a whole. So
Mhm.
some of these decisions might be implied from senior leadership, or
Yeah.
maybe it's a collective decision, especially in a down market that everyone try not to mess things up. Nobody wants to lose a job, right? Things
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
a little bit scary. How do you make sure that if the decision is already been made, how would
Yeah.
you communicate this with your team to still, keep that trust that you have with the team if something is imposed, from senior leadership or a collective decision from all the leaders, and it's going
Yeah.
to happen regardless of reps' feeling.
Yeah, so I think transparency is very important. We've all had them. We've all had leaders, managers, bosses who will say things to you, and you can either tell you can tell that what you're being told might necessarily be the whole truth. So I think transparency is a big one. I think giving people the opportunity to ask questions, just because a decision won't change, doesn't mean that there's no validity in people asking a question, or there's no validity in allowing a forum of some kind, right? So it's about making people feel heard. If it's a decision they don't like, right? If it's a decision they don't like, make them feel heard and ensure that questions are noted and things are done about those questions, right? And it can be as simple as taking them to the wider leadership group or above, and just bringing awareness, right, to questions. It doesn't mean that questions need answers or changes need to
Yeah.
happen, but awareness is important. And then I think it's just about focusing on the positives, right? We're all always in situations where there's things we can't change, whether that be work, whether that be personal life. There are always things we can't change. So it's about focusing on the positives. And then I think there's a certain responsibility as a leader to keep note of what works and what doesn't work. Just because I can't change a decision doesn't mean I can't influence something positively in the future. So we focus on the positives. We make sure people are heard, give them a forum, be honest, and then it's my job and my responsibility to track, does this decision work? Egos aside, even if it's my decision, right? Egos aside, does the decision work? If it does, fantastic. If it doesn't, how do we evolve it? What feedback is there from the team? How do we keep that continuous loop
Mm.
to ensure that we can have that continuous improvement, continuous learning, continuous growth moving forward? Just because a decision is final doesn't mean a decision won't change or evolve in the future. So, yeah, that's the way in which I try and do it. And I emphasize on try because I don't get everything right every time. But, there's that's the way in which I try and approach this kind of situation.
Okay, that's fair enough. Um, Again, another question. Hopefully, it does not get both of us into trouble, but I'm just really curious to ask this. You're leading a BDR team. You've been
Yes.
leading, BDR teams for years right now. How do you see, first and foremost, your team react to all this, buzzwords on the internet? We got AI SDRs, BDRs popping up. Your job is at risk. Or what's your real perspective on it? Like, what would be the negative and positive impact of AI in your role and also the effects on your team?
Yeah. So I don't see it as a negative, right? I think it's quite reactionary to say, oh, this is a bad thing, right? I think like anything, like any sort of revolution, whether it be industrial revolution, technological revolution, people aren't eradicated, right? People who perhaps aren't as good at the role as others may face challenges. But I choose to see it as it's something that can be implemented within our business. It's something that can be implemented, within our teams to try and elevate what we're doing. I mean, we use Google Gemini quite a lot. I'll hold my hands up, right? From a research perspective, sometimes it can really cut things down. Sometimes it can help us understand jargon. Sometimes it can help us understand businesses. Do I believe it will get rid of human to human connection? No. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're an SDR or a VP of sales. Any meeting you're in is a person talking to a person at the end of the day, and it doesn't matter how good AI is. It's never going to be a person, right? So I think those who choose to embrace it and learn ways in which to implement it as part of their role will see great success. And I
Hmm.
think those who view being a BDR the same as it was in the early 2000s and send 1,000 emails a week and just tell everyone why they're great, it might replace you. But those that think strategically, that look to bring value, that look to sell value, and look to help businesses achieve goals, I don't think it will replace.
Yeah, we share the same sentiment here. I genuinely believe like professions like sales is really a human to human sort of interaction at the end of the day, regardless of how many fancy tool you implement in the organization. At the end of the day, can you actually connect with someone? Because it's more than just the business talk and business conversation. Is it like really understand each other, the values and the goals we have for the business? But at first, it's just a human connection. Can we build that? That's a skill set
Yeah.
by itself. You had some experience taking charge of teams that struggle with performance. There's nothing wrong with it. It happens all the time. And you got on board as a leader, you had some plans and you implemented some solutions and helped them actually surpass their quota and get to a high performing position. Do you believe your reps burn leads practicing on client calls? When it comes to giving them one-on-one coaching sessions, you just don't have the bandwidth, so you get rid of them altogether? Or maybe you notice that your team spends a lot of time on non-revenue tasks like taking notes, updating CRM, or drafting emails. These are the exact challenges we solve for other revenue leaders like yourself. With SellMeThisPen AI Coach, you can offer your reps role-play sessions at scale while automating one-on-one coaching sessions based on your best practices and methodology. Also, AI will take care of all their non-revenue tasks, like note-taking, CRM updates, draft the email for them, so they can focus on constant improvement while you're focusing on one thing and one thing only: revenue growth. If you're interested in learning more about the clients we are working with or use cases that might be beneficial to you, check us out at SellMeThisPen.ai. Can you share a story from the past that you inherited a team who has struggled with performance and how you help them grow and be high performing reps?
Yeah, definitely. I'll tell this story because I do it, well, I try and do it everywhere I go, is reset the mindset of what this role is. We ultimately we are there to create opportunities, to book meetings, to drive pipeline into the business, right? That is why we exist. But I think we have to evolve what the role is, and I think we are more than meeting bookers. We are more than opportunity setters. So I try and change the mindset, not just of the individual teams, but of my peers, of the people I work alongside, whether it be sales leadership, marketing, operations, and I want to position this team as salespeople first and foremost. But it's about understanding what we sell. Again, this is an opinion piece, right? I would never tell someone doing something differently to me who's succeeding that they're wrong. But I don't think it's our job to go out and tell the market, what our products are. Honestly, I don't really think it is what our products are, because ultimately, when was the last time an SDR was closing a deal, negotiating pricing, doing an RFI, POC?
Mm-hmm.
It's not happening, right? So
Yep.
I want us to be salespeople, but I want us to view it as what we sell is phone calls and meetings. That is our product, right? We sell phone calls and meetings. So it's trying to then adjust it from, okay, let's not go out and talk about all the features and functions and great things our product does. There is value in that. There is. But right now, all I want my teams to achieve is this question, which is, how did you do that? That's it. Because how did you do that ultimately will drive someone to say, sure, I'll talk to you for 15 minutes. Whereas if we go out and go, here's all the things we do, it drives the response of, we already have that.
You're
And,
set.
and we smile because, you've had it in sales, I've had it in sales, everyone's had it in sales of, oh, we've already got a tool like that. So the big change I make is, again, we're salespeople, but it's, hey, what are the outcomes that we drive? What is the impact our product drives? Can we share some real world examples? Now, real world examples don't have to be beautifully put together marketing pieces and case studies,
Mm-hmm.
fantastically valuable. But sometimes it's a one liner. It is, hey, AE partner, you sold to this, and this person. What's happened 6 months later? Oh, they've achieved X results, Y results. Fantastic. That's now what I'm going to go to the market with. That's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk
Mm-hmm.
about those outcomes, those impacts. And by changing kind of that mentality and that thought process of what this team is and why they exist is part of how we start to get results. And I say part of because there's lots of other things that we change. There's lots of other things we do. There are things that I did 2 years ago that I don't do anymore because I've realized, hey, there's better ways to do them. But that's the fundamental core of it, right? Is just understanding what are we as a team? And we are salespeople, but we don't sell a product. We sell a conversation. And I think that's part of, we can talk about processes and metrics and sales methodologies until I'm blue in the face, but getting the team and the business to understand, hey, what are we, really helps then shift, approaches and methods. And I've done it previously, I've done it in my most recent role as well. And it can be difficult, right? The SDR role has continuously evolved, but its foundations haven't changed a lot. And I don't think I'm reinventing the wheel here, by the way. I'm by no means the greatest since sliced bread, but it's just understanding what we are. And we're salespeople that sell phone calls. So the question then becomes not why is someone going to buy OpenText, or why is someone going to buy Sell Me This Pen? Why is someone going to buy this phone call?
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's fundamentally changed our messaging, our conversations, our cold calls, everything, right? It's changed the way we talk about everything, which has helped drive results.
I love this so much. It reminds me of one of my favorite, books of all time, Start With Why by Simon
Mm.
Sinek. And you touch on something really, really important, because what if we actually show our team that they are more than just a pointer setter? They are salespeople as well. They might not actually get celebrated the same as AEs in the organization. That's another topic for maybe another, episode. But their work has big impact on the business. If there is no top
Yeah.
of the funnel, if there is no relevant, SQL coming in, the business as a whole will suffer. Their AE colleagues will suffer, and also the clients. Again, we're wasting people's time because we're trying to drive something that is selfishly only for us, rather than just providing some value upfront. To your point, and as a result, we can book that meeting. We can book the next steps. All right. My last question
Yeah.
is just for us to have a little bit of fun. So just imagine you have the option. You're starting as a leader at this company. It's a new job. They tell you have two options in front of you, and two options only. You can inherit a team of high performing lone wolves. They bring numbers all the time consistently, but they're not open to getting and being part of your, let's say, Everboarding program. They're not coachable. And you have a mixed team of coachable reps. You have A player, B players, C players. So you need to put on work and help them grow. So which one would you choose, and why?
Yeah, I think the obvious and easy answer is you pick the coachable team, right? It's as much as results are great, and as salespeople, we live and die by our numbers. It's only as great as the team wanting to be there, and people wanting to work with these individuals. So the easy answer, and the one that I would pick, is the coachable team. But I think I would caveat this by saying, coachable people need something to point towards, right? They sometimes need that lone wolf to go. They are doing the things that we talk about, right? You need something to aspire towards. So, as much as I'm not the biggest fan of lone wolves, I think there is value in them depending on where a business is at, right? And what you're ultimately trying to achieve within that. I do want coachable people. I do want people who will learn, who will grow, and not just from me, but from others, from their peers, from their AEs, team members, whoever it is, right? But I think there's some value sometimes in just pointing at someone who consistently achieves and going, look, we can get you here, right? This is what you can get to. This is how you can, this is the end goal. Because I think coachability is a fantastic, really underrated skill set to have. But you still have to have something for people to believe in. You still have to
Mhm.
have something where people go, yeah, that guy makes 150% of his OTE, quarter in, quarter out. I want to be like that guy. Yeah, I want the coachability, but I sometimes don't think it's always a terrible thing. Just having that one person who
I love it.
may like who you can point to as a shining star. But yeah, but again, there's not to over caveat it, but there's so many ways to look at that, right? Like where is a business at? What do we have to achieve? I've been very lucky in my career to work at startups, scale ups, and larger organizations, and I think different organizations call for a different kind of character. So there's no one right way to do that. To completely now just sidestep the question. There's no one
I
right
love
way.
it. I mean, it's a loaded
Yeah.
question. It was just mostly to hear what you actually shared. So there is value in having a diverse team of people who are really focused on only bringing numbers, hit their quota, making more money, because they might actually inspire some of our upcoming reps. But your job as a leader is to show them the path to get to that high performing position. It seems like you're doing a fantastic job. Jake, I appreciate you a lot. Thank you very much for sharing your insight. If someone wants to reach out to you, how should they do that if they want to get some feedback? Hopefully they don't peace slap you with their solution, but can they, and how?
Yeah, well, I mean, can they slap me? Sure. Like, it's hey, the easiest way to get hold of me, is always on LinkedIn. I'm reasonably responsive. Yeah, and hey, we joke about bad feedback, but hey, all feedback is good feedback, right? It's there's no such thing. But the easiest way to get hold of me is LinkedIn. I'm pretty receptive on that.
Awesome. All right, Jake, thank you very much, and chat with you soon.
Thank you, appreciate it, Michael.
Cheers.